we'll have this pop up on the screen in a second here, but there's this adoption curve, and where it kind of flows from. We'll have it come on the screen here, but from innovators to early adopters to the early majority, and then to the late majority, and then the laggards, right? But eventually, everybody gets there. It's this, if you think about it from the internet perspective, it's the same kind of idea. And I think we're in that second phase now, which is that early adopters. The money's starting to flow there, but people are still wondering, what is this? What's the utility in day-to-day life? And that's what's coming. That's what's so exciting about the space.
There's still a lot of pessimism out there, right?
Ton of pessimism out there. But think about it. That was what it was with the internet too. Yeah. There was this the internet's not gonna happen. And in fact, we have another. We'll pop it up on the screen here too, which is and it's funny reading it, but the disparity in the original opinions of Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, several years ago to just last year or the year before. I'll give one example, and I think you have one too. Yeah. So here's one. Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs lists. This is the original one several years ago. Goldman Sachs lists 5 reasons why Bitcoin is not an asset class nor a suitable investment. Pan forward. Jump forward. Exclusive. Goldman Sachs restarts cryptocurrency desk amid Bitcoin boom.
Yeah.
I'll do one more. Bitcoin is useless as a payment mechanism and ridiculous as a store of value. That's the ex-PayPal CEO. Then flash forward. PayPal's entry to crypto following long build-up in expertise. Like it's.
And what's the time difference between those two statements? Is it like a year?
I think 5 years.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe at the most, Tim, 5 years.
I mean, I have some, and this is still going on today. I mean, there's a couple, and these were like, 3, 4, 5 years ago. But you have these big time investors and voices, at least in our industry, like Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett. They're both in their 90s. This is something that obviously they don't like. They want no part of. But Charlie Munger, he's a little extreme. One, he calls it rat poison. But he also goes on to call it disgusting and contrary to the interests of civilization. I mean, talk about pessimism, right? Coming from a guy who's, he said this when he was 95 years old.
Well, we got to think about what's the incentive, right? What's the incentive behind the opinion? And what incentive does Warren Buffett or Charlie Munger have? Really, I mean, they're worth billions and billions of dollars, to understand this in their 90s. I mean, that's the thing, and maybe they end up being right. I don't know. Yeah. I can't. This with the momentum where it is right now, I just don't see that happening. But I think it's almost the opposite of what Charlie Munger said, right? Which is, how is it a detriment to society if we have a currency or a store of value that we know stores value, right? Isn't there value in that alone? Yeah, and I'm just talking about Bitcoin at this point in time, not to mention the variety of other technological advances that come from blockchain technology, and that further us along. There's always going to be this pushback, especially from folks who've made their living and career off of nothing related to it.
Yeah, and they've amassed these fortunes doing things one way, and now you're talking about guys who've been around doing this for the last 75 years. Why change anything now, right? Yeah. And it's new to them. It's a foreign concept. Maybe it scares them in a way. It poses a threat to the traditional way of doing what they've done to create the fortunes. I actually have another interesting one from who people perceive as one of the better CEOs in our industry is Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan, where he starts off by saying it's a fraud and then goes on to say it's worse than tulip bulbs. It won't end well. Someone is going to get killed. And then he says, currencies have legal support. It will blow up. And then I guess he finishes that in another statement saying he would fire any employee in a second who traded Bitcoin, noting 2 specific reasons. Number 1, it's against our rules. And number 2, they are stupid. I thought that was an interesting 2 reasons. Pan forward, so that was 2017, right? Pan forward 1 year to 2018. The blockchain is real, Dimon said in an interview. Right. You can have crypto dollars in yen and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
1 year, he talks about firing any of his traders who deal in Bitcoin. Also talks about allocating, I think it's on your graph, 1% of portfolios to Bitcoin, right? From a
Yeah.
year prior, calling people stupid for even thinking about trading in Bitcoin or owning Bitcoin. And that's one of the most renowned CEOs of one
Right
of the
of our time.
largest banks, right? JP Morgan.